Spider-Man became a great superhero because of his ability to understand and use his senses effectively, where he could later fight crime in honor of his Uncle Ben. Well, superheroes that have extraordinary senses, just like Spider-Man, really do exist, and they have synesthesia. I'm a psychology major, and I am very interested in the topic of synesthesia. So I've been doing a lot of research to inform myself, so in turn I could then inform you today. I will be doing so by speaking on what it is, what happens in the brain, how it affects their lives, and by giving examples of famous people with synesthesia. So what is this superpower? According to the medical dictionary, synesthesia is a condition in which a stimulus, in addition to exciting the usual and normally located sensation, gives rise to a subjective sensation of different character or localization. People without synesthesia only have one sensation to a stimulus. We see letters exactly how they are, and hear sounds how they sound. Synesthetes, however, have an additional sense along with the normal one that we normally have. So they might be able to see sounds. The definite causes for synesthesia are unknown but widely theorized. We use brain imaging tools such as an fMRI, which helps psychologists and doctors to see what happens inside the brain, which has been a beneficial tool to understanding the complexity of the brain. It is very rare, however, the studies that have been done are quite unreliable. This is because it's a pretty subjective condition. Studies are unable to accurately depict the correct number of people who have it. In 1993, a man named Richard Sitwanek started a study to determine the prevalence of synesthesia. He came to the conclusion that 1 in 100,000 people had synesthesia. He came to this conclusion by putting an ad in a newspaper for looking for synesthetes. He calculated the numbers based on how many people responded and how many newspapers were sent out. Another study by Baron Cohen in 1996 determined it was every 1 in 2,000. Another thing that makes this difficult is that some synesthetes don't even realize that they are synesthetes. In many studies, if they said no to having synesthesia, the test was over. The variance between studies is quite confusing. However, the studies are getting better as awareness of synesthesia increases. Now that we know what it is, let's take a look at what happens inside the brain itself. When synesthesia was first being researched, it was thought that it was due to crossed wires within the brain. However, we now have a better understanding of the brain and how it functions. According to the Australian National University, it can be theorized that synesthetes have close and very active connections within their brain. Due to these close connections, where only one sensation is supposed to be perceived, it also creates a stimulation in another part of the brain. According to the American Psychological Association, Baron Cohen proposed that it was due to genetics that gave a result of an overabundance of neural connections in the brain. They believed that there were more connections between neurons than what most people had. Dr. Peter Grossenbacher, a psychologist at Naropa University, agrees that it is likely due to genetics, however, because of a different brain mechanism. He argues that we don't need to posit more abnormal architecture of connections in order to account for synesthesia. He proposes that in their brain, the feedbackward connections that move information from high-level multisensory areas in the brain to single-sense areas are not properly functioning. However, he does credit other theories in speaking about the inadequate data available on the subject of synesthesia. So now that we know what it is, how does this affect people's day-to-day lives? To those who know little on synesthesia, they may see it as a condition or a problem. However, psychologists with frontiers in human neuroscience see it more as an advantage. Synesthetes seem to be able to use their gifts in order to aid in forming mnemonic devices or other ways of learning. I also happen to know somebody with synesthesia, and I had a chance to sit down and speak with him to see how it has affected him. He spoke about how interesting it was to experience. He experiences synesthesia where sight is accompanied with hearing a sound. He told me about some of his close friends and how he can easily recognize who he's talking to without even seeing them, because he can also see the uniqueness of their voice. He described it a little like this. He can see a film of swirling color in front of what he is already seeing, with every color being different for each person. He said it was helpful and a beautiful thing to experience because of his love for music. However, even though I found this so interesting, I wondered if it caused any issues in his life. He said that it was mostly normal for him because he had never known anything different. However, there are times where it can be very distracting and can even hurt him. When he hears a really loud, high-pitched noise, it not only hurts his ears but also hurts his eyes as it causes somewhat of a blinding light in his face. He works as an EMT driver, so he needs to wear earplugs so that he is not blinded by the noise of the loud sirens. Overall, though, he enjoys having the ability to see sounds because it makes his experience of life more unique. So where can we all see synesthesia? Some famous people with synesthesia are Lorde. In a Twitter Q&A, she explained how one of her songs first started as a badly textured tan color, making her feel sick, but then it later turned into incredible greens. Another is Pharrell Williams. He said it just stuck out in my mind and I could always see it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I could always visualize what I was hearing. It was always just sort of some weird colors. Another is Ed Sheeran. His favorite color to hear is blue, but orange is his favorite for his music. In conclusion, synesthesia is an interesting condition that causes the world to be more complex for those who experience it. As my time comes to a close, I hope you all learned something interesting as we talked about what synesthesia is, how it affects the brain and the lives of those who have it, and where it can be seen in our society. If you're interested in discovering if you have synesthesia, take a short quiz online to help lead you in the direction of figuring out if you have synesthesia at synesthesia.com. Thank you.